Okay. It's time to watch. I saw this on my YouTube page a while ago, and I'm really excited for it. Can you conduct a census in Red Dead Redemption 2? And I don't know what the premise is, but I like the idea of doing a census in a video game, and also specifically Red Dead Redemption 2, because that's one of those overly detailed games where they fucking gave those developers a choice. Either see your family again or create a masterpiece that will hold up in every single video game argument till the end of time. Well, in 2015, Rockstar released the best game ever. So modern games that don't have every single blade of grass animated and horses shitting and their balls getting colder in the snow, are actually games that are ass. The perfect game has already been released. Any game that isn't better in the amount of detail that Red Dead Redemption 2 has is, you know, like it's every single fucking argument online. So I want to see if you can do a census. Is it that detailed? I need to know. I need to know. So if ever I see the fucking Twitter argument again, I can just link this video and say like, well, you can't do a census in it. I just assume you can't.
Percent of the people. Did you know that 30% of the people in the town of Valentine in Red Dead Redemption 2 have at least one tooth missing? You want to know how I know that? Because I conducted a census. Sort of.
Never mind, this guy's crazy.
Conducting a census, which is like a giant survey
insane.
where you try to figure out
how the
who
fuck
lives
do you know
in
that?
the town and what their lives are like, is kind of complicated in a video game where you've got over 100 unnamed NPCs that respawn every morning and don't tell you anything about who they are or what they do. In real life, you literally just go up to people, give them a sheet with questions, and then they fill it out using their human brains. But video
I don't think I've ever
filled
out a census
human
sheet.
brains, which means they definitely can't fill out surveys. So I need to figure out a way that we can get some type of survey
them, don't you?
From these NPCs without using normal survey tools. For a real census, we would have lots of hyper-specific questions, like what kind of housing everyone lives in, how old each member of the family is, whether they have internet access, and so on. But in a video game, a lot of these questions don't make sense and would be impossible to answer.
Do you have internet?
So I decided to focus on the big, broad things you would see on a real census, but simplified down to what's actually visible and inferable in a video game, which means we're really going to look at 5 things. Number 1, employment status.
Oh, do you have a job?
Each person has a job or not, and sort them into unemployed or employed. Number 2, employment industry. So if someone is employed, what industry are they employed in? Number 3, we'll look at their income level. So based on their job as well as what they're wearing and where they're located, we're going to make a guess as to what their income level is. Number 4, age.
This guy has spent at least 6 months in this video.
But, rather than a specific age, we're just going to sort everyone here into 3 categories: children, adults, and old. Lastly, number 5, health. We are going to try and determine how healthy all of these people are based solely on what they're doing and how they look. We'll get into the details of the criteria for each category as we go, but for now, these 5 questions are going to serve as our census. As I alluded to in the intro, Red Dead Redemption 2 NPCs are kind of divided into 2 types. You've got static NPCs with names like bank teller, bartender, sheriff, or store owner, and these people can be found in the same place day after day. And then you've got unnamed NPCs called strangers, kind of crazy
compared to the normal crazy.
All sorts of funny random things. The second
this is the guy who would have been sorting beetles 100 years ago. This is the guy writing encyclopedias about beetles 100 years ago. I promise you.
Upon entering the town of Valentine was the sheriff, because I figured that he would be amenable to assisting someone on official government business with an important bureaucratic task. But I was wrong about that.
Okay, move yourself along.
Oh shit!
Would you relax?
Sorry, man. Oh my God, he's gonna shoot me! No!
It's not good. I'm going to talk to FDR about this, or whoever. Who's president? Woodrow Wilson?
The good news is that we don't have to get too close to people to determine what kind of job they have, especially when it literally says sheriff in their name. So this guy, definitely employed. Most of the other named NPCs are in hospitality and food service, with 2 employed bartenders, a hotel front desk worker, and a lady who will give you a bath at the hotel.
I loved the bath
ladies.
ladies.
You've got your standard Old West positions like a town doctor, a banker, a general store owner, and a gun store owner. Add in a few other weirdos like this guy who has some kind of movie theater, and you end up with a chart that makes it look like a fairly diverse economy with lots of people working many different jobs, like a cute little hippie commune or something.
Yay!
But this place is not a hippie commune.
No.
So that sheriff did to me. And in fact, when we survey all of those unnamed NPCs I told you about, this graph is going to go from looking like this
the best
to
goddamn
like
inventory
this,
job in the Middle
with
Ages.
Over half of the jobs
we need
in
more
the
bath
city
ladies. We
taken
do.
up by one industry. Any guesses what
Bathe
that
me,
industry might be.
titties.
Well, let's wrap up
Rub
the
my
survey and then
titties
we'll go
with
figure
soap.
that out right after I tell you about the savior of my life, Factor Meal Delivery Service.
Oh.
Welcome to the sponsorship. Here's the thing
Thank
about
you.
Factor. Factor is a service
I've
with
always
a purpose,
been
and
intrigued
it
by
fulfills
Factor.
that purpose if you use that
Do you know what I
service,
mean?
which is that they send
Like,
you freshly made
it's like
meals in little
HelloFresh,
boxes
but
that
they
you
give
can heat
me
up and
a
eat very
Lunchable,
quickly. It's not
and I
here to
microwave
replace
it.
cooking if you want to cook. It's not pretending to
Yeah.
be Michelin star quality food, cooked by
Like, how
Gordon
good is it?
Ramsay, but it's a highly convenient, tasty way to get
But,
full
like,
meals
I'm
in a way
lazy,
that
do you know what I
minimizes
mean?
the effort you have to
I
put
feel
into
like
cooking
this
or
is
deciding
ideal
what
for
to
me.
cook. They send you meals in a box.
I'm
You throw
scared.
them in the microwave.
I did
or
one of
cook
those meal
them in a
services.
pan
What did
like
you do,
me,
and did you
in
like
a few
it?
minutes, you're eating a solid meal that fits your dietary preferences without having to put in any effort. Which obviously
These
I
Factor
love.
years ago, it's
I don't know if
alright,
you
probably
guys
took
have
hit
been
during the pandemic, though.
appreciating the light
They
speed that
probably,
I've been
like,
putting out my videos
got
lately,
super
but guess
busy
what?
during
I can't do that
COVID
if I have to
because
cook
more
all
people
my
were
meals from
ordering it 'cause they
scratch
didn't
2 or
wanna
3
go
times a
out.
day. That's just simple math.
And so they
listen,
just had to, like,
I
cut
like cooking
costs
my meals
somehow,
from scratch.
or,
Fresh
like,
ingredients are great.
deliver
Go to a
shit.
farmer's market. We love
It was
those.
okay, but
if your
expensive.
life
They
right
didn't
now
have a
is
lot
too
of food
busy,
options.
too exhausting, or you just
That's a
rather
big
spend time
criticism
doing
of a lot
other
of them is
things
they don't
than
have a lot of food
cooking,
options.
Factor is a pretty great option.
But, like,
They've
where do you
got
draw the line
low-carb
about how many
meals,
food options you
high-protein
have when you
meals,
only have so many
vegetarian
ingredients?
meals, all sorts of options
Or,
to
like, when
suit
you're
whatever
when
your
you're
food
making food from a
preferences
factory,
are.
you know
And
what I
if you
mean?
find yourself eager to cook from scratch again, it's no problem. You can just pause or cancel your subscription without issue and then restart it whenever you want it again, which is what I do. Unless they're sending me a
I wonder
free
if,
box
like,
when I'm doing
because,
a
like,
sponsorship.
all
If
right
they're
is
not sending
fine
me a
for
free
me
box,
if the
that's
price
what I
point
do.
reflects
Head
that
to
it's all right. You know what I
factor75.com
mean?
or click the link below and use code AnyAustinFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code AnyAustinFB50.
Free
I
breakfast?
learned,
I
somebody
don't
pointed
know.
out. Yes, the last time we did one of these, I said I thought
They changed it. If I
FB.
said something
didn't
I
know
like,
what
then you never
FB
see that
stood
again.
for, so I said maybe it stood for. Someone pointed out it probably stands for free breakfast. That is factor75.com or click the link below. AnyAustinFB50 for 50% off plus
How
FB for 1 year.
expensive
Now
is
let's
Factor?
talk about how much money we think all these people in Valentine are making, shall we? The average American household income in 1907, which is the year that our survey takes place, was around $700. And yes,
They
that
don't
is
have a child hunting
$700
island?
annually, which adjusted
Dead
for
too?
inflation is equal
I
to
don't think
about
they have it.
$50,000 of buying power today, which is lower than the median
$13 a
income
meal?
in America now, but really not nearly as bad as I would have expected. Based on that, let's try to estimate what some of our named NPCs might be making in a year. When we look at someone like this small town doctor, he was probably making significantly more than the median income, maybe something like $2,000 per year, which would put him in the upper class of people in this area. Congratulations to you, sir. But the rest
look at
of
his
our
eyebrow
workers
raise.
probably aren't
He knows
so
he's
lucky.
rich.
This bank clerk might be doing slightly better than bad, but he's likely making around $700 a year at most, right around the national median. This hotel owner might be a little better off since he seems to own this hotel, but probably no more than about $800 per year. And then the rest
We're
of
really
these folks,
estimating,
the
huh?
bartenders, the bath attendant, the shopkeepers, etc., are probably all making no more than $600 per year, probably less. Which means our income spread of the named NPCs looks like this. Most of them are solidly working class, and then the doctor is the only person who we might consider truly upper class. But we do have a lot more people to survey. Let's move on to age, and unsurprisingly,
I like
all
the
of
guided
named
categories.
NPCs are going to fall squarely in the adult category. It's a little bit of selection bias because we are specifically only doing people right now that have notable roles in the town, and those people are going to be definitionally employed and of age. And then lastly, maybe the most interesting question we have to cover here is health. Coming up with a criteria to judge health based off of nothing but looking at somebody is, of course, a little tricky. So when I first was doing it, I just started out by kind of vibing it out, you know?
Well, he's a little red around the nose. His skin's definitely looks a little worse for wear. This is so mean. He's leaning. He doesn't have the small muscles in his back. Are not supporting him. You know, he's obviously tired. A little grime under the, little dirt around the hands, so he's not washing his hands enough.
And for the most part, that seemed
Damn.
doable, especially once I got the hang of kind of what I was looking for. Things like whether people had clean hands or redness in the face or how their posture was. These aren't going to tell us anything about underlying conditions they might have, but, and I say this as someone with bad posture, they do indicate something about somebody's overall health, at least probabilistically.
How's his health? We're gonna assume good because he's a doctor. Hands absolutely pristine. Look at
Damn,
that.
I hate the
His
fucking
skin's
detail in this
looking pretty
game.
rough. He looks tired as heck. He's nodding. He agrees, actually.
However, I had a revelation upon examining my 6th NPC, and this was crazy to me. Every character in this game, all these people have unique teeth.
Wait. How many teeth are missing? He's missing one tooth in the front.
Why the
This
fuck
is
do they have
crazy.
unique teeth?
He's got some plaque buildup in the back. Holy cow, I can't believe we can tell. This is crazy.
What the
What
fuck?
are these game developers doing? His wisdom teeth kind of came in funny back there. I don't know. Somebody, can a dentist count these teeth and tell me if he has a normal amount of teeth? I can see his uvula.
I'm still kind of in awe of this because I inspected lots of NPCs, well over 100 by the time this survey is fully completed. And there were easily more than 10 unique sets of teeth, if not more, across these characters, including different amounts of remaining
Oh, I
wisdom
thought every
teeth for
single one
different
had different
people,
teeth.
different levels of decay or
Imagine me
plaque
the person
buildup,
that arrested
and
just had all the
different
teeth.
missing from different people. It's legitimately insane that they
Okay,
did this.
no.
Like, they must have had a...
When I was looking at like a trailer for Devil May Cry 5, right? When it was about to be released, there was a guy who was like, yeah, my specific role was in the cutscene where like in the lips pressed together, the way the lips press together and the way they like react. That was my job in the cutscene. And I was like, how long did that take you? Because then I thought about it, like that is a very specific detail. And like it looked very natural in the cutscene. And I was like, damn, they really pay attention to the craziest things, huh? Because like now that I think about it, it would look unnatural to me slightly if like the lips didn't press together. But I'd just be like, oh, it's a video game, da 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 da. But then like when it happened in the cutscene, I was like, damn, this is super realistic. Look at the way the lips press together. Like, what the fuck?
dedicated dental modeling supervisor working there. Hopefully that wasn't one of those people they fired the other week. If it was, better bring them back. We need realistic teeth in GTA 6. Anyway, teeth end up being a great indicator of overall health, and once I was able to add that into my formula, it was surprisingly easy to map it all out. I ended up considering anyone with no obvious defects to be in good health. 2 or fewer defects was fine health, and more than that was considered poor health. So about half of the named NPCs that we surveyed are in fine health, with the other half split just about evenly between good and poor.
I see. I like my little charts.
For 1907. So with that, we have all of our data from
all
of
circles.
the named NPCs in Valentine. Now let's talk everyone else. So like I said, the problem with everyone else in Valentine is that they are not persistent, meaning they don't have names, which is going to be very annoying, and you can't talk to them at all, which is going to be even more annoying, but they also don't even exist across multiple days. Look at these photos I took of these same 2 buildings from one day to the next. All the same slots are filled, but they're filled by totally different NPCs. So how can we possibly survey these constantly changing people? Well, I wasn't sure quite yet, but I knew that the first thing I needed to do was figure out how many of these NPCs there are in total, roughly, at any given time.
Jesus
I did
Christ.
5 separate frantic runs around the city at peak times of day to try and count them as quickly and loosely as I could, and then I took the average of that number because I figured sometimes I would miss some people or double count some people, and I ended up with roughly 100 unnamed NPC slots at any given time in Valentine. I'm sure this isn't quite right, but it'll be close enough for our purposes. So great, right? Now we just
it's
have
not
to
accurate
go
anymore.
do 100 surveys of all these people, and we're done. Easy. If only it was that simple. The problem is that even though there are 100 of these people present at any given time, the game is randomly filling in these 100 NPC slots from a mysterious pool of possible NPCs, which is why they change from day to day. And we don't really know anything about this mysterious pool. It could contain hundreds of possible characters that the game picks from, or just a few dozen. But that mysterious pool is really what we're trying to survey. So, can we do that? I think so, but we can't do it using a direct survey like we did before. We're gonna have to get more creative. So what I decided to do is pretty simple if you think about it, but it's sort of genius. I divided the town of Valentine into a perfect impartial grid and labeled all of the squares. Then I paired all of those grid spaces with 8 different time slots throughout the day that I felt would represent the spread of different NPC layouts that the town might have in a normal 24-hour
My role in this
period.
cutscene was female jiggle physics
I used
designer.
A random selecting tool
I'm
to
on
pick
left
out
hit
25
of this
combinations of times and locations, and then I used those combinations of times and locations to conduct surveys of any NPCs within those grid squares at those times. By spreading the surveys out like this and taking lots of random samples, I wasn't counting the same types of people over and over. I was getting a real mix of whoever happened to be in town at that moment. And once you combine all those tiny snapshots together, you can actually build a pretty accurate picture of what Valentine Valentine looks like on a normal day, even if the NPCs themselves are always changing or moving around. So I spent an entire real-life day running back and forth across the grid in
Jesus
Valentine,
fucking Christ.
surveying people as quickly
Did
and
you do
efficiently
all
as
of Red Dead
possible
2 or
within the
just the
times that
city
were
of
selected,
Valentine?
gathering all of that
Please
data
just
in a
tell me you did
spreadsheet
only
so
did
we could
Valentine.
analyze it later and draw conclusions about it. Now, full disclosure, I tried to make it sound like I came up with this survey method myself because I wanted to build mystique around my creative genius.
Oh, yeah,
but
who did
this
this?
is actually a very well-established method of doing surveys called time location sampling. It's
I
basically
see.
the same methodology that
got
real
lifted
world
lucky. I really wanted
researchers
to
use
that
when they
sheet.
can't track every single person in a given population. They sample times and locations and then let probability do the rest of the work. I discovered a lot of awesome details about Red Dead Redemption 2 from this portion of the survey because we had to use a lot more context clues to determine employment and income level. So let me share with you some of those
He learned
observations
actual
now. First
census
up,
techniques.
check out these pink things tied around this guy's knees. These are called knee wraps, and they're often worn by people who worked in ranching or herding to prevent their pants from riding up and exposing their legs or knees to cuts and scrapes, because they'd always be walking through stuff that scrapes them. And it also helps their pants last longer because the wrapping would get scraped up when you kneel down rather than the pants themselves getting scraped up at the knee. This one small detail was enough for me to conclude that this guy was probably employed, likely as a ranch hand or cattle driver, meaning he likely makes working class levels of money. And a quick look at his teeth shows us that he's missing one, but otherwise in fine health. Another great detail was this guy standing on the porch of this house. We assume that he owns this house, meaning he's fairly well off and he's relatively well dressed with good teeth and clean hands. But how did he get his money to buy the house? Well, in his backyard, we can find 2 big old sacks of army payroll. It's probably obvious, but having giant sacks of cash meant to pay military servicemen sitting in your backyard probably means you're up to no good. Ergo, we determined that this guy is probably a white-collar criminal, which may be a little naughty of him, but it does still count as employment. There
He's
are lots of great
employed!
details on the characters and environments like this in Red Dead Redemption 2,
He's
but the real
employed!
question is whether or not those details were enough for us to build a full assessment of the demographics here in Valentine, and whether or not those demographics are accurate to history. So let's take a look at the results, shall we? Compiling all the results ended up taking a bit of time.
Damn,
because,
these fucking
as you might
developers
have
did
guessed,
not
when
fucking
we
sleep,
did our
dog.
time location sampling, we weren't
tax
actually
man is
counting
coming.
specific people, but rather the overall
clock is ticking.
proportion
Your
of
time is running
people in a
out.
given group.
The time
so
is
I had
running
to take the
out.
results of that
Let's welcome
study,
back.
apply those proportions to the
gosh.
unnamed 100
10 months
NPCs that
up.
we
Thank you,
estimated
Blitz.
existed at any given time from earlier, and then add that number to our initial count of the named NPCs. But I got it done. I built my pie charts, and I officially have
Show me
some
its charts.
fascinating results
Show
for
me the
you
charts.
about the way people in Valentine are living. Starting
Yes.
with age. Okay,
Age.
this one's not that interesting, but all the people here are adults with only a few elderly
Only a
people
few
and
elderly.
0 children.
Zero
Rockstar Games
children. These
generally
guys
don't
need to
have
get
children
busy.
in them for obvious reasons, so it's no surprise that there are none here as well. But in a real frontier town like this, you would definitely have children running around,
Yes.
especially for the named NPC type people who clearly live here and work here over the longer term. Something very
Outside view of
strange
him
would have to
looking
be
at NPC's
happening
mouth.
here for
Our
there
other
not to be
morning.
any kids
What the
at all.
fuck?
Next up, let's talk employment. Almost everyone
You need
in
to get away from me,
Valentine is
Shunny.
employed here. 90% of people have jobs, 5% are unemployed, and 5% are not applicable, meaning that the town overall has an unemployment rate of 4.5%. What exactly does an unemployed person look
does
like
that
in Red Dead 2,
mean
you
that
might
bad?
ask? Well, here's a guy who spends the entire day in a bar, not drinking, and stabbing himself with a knife, so I would say that that seems pretty unemployed, especially if you can't
does
even
seem pretty
afford to buy a
unemployed
drink.
behavior.
Everybody in this game drinks. Everybody in America drank, I guess, at that time. Now, a few interesting aspects
Nothing
of the
better to
employment
do.
situation here. First of all, there are very few not applicable people in our survey, meaning we didn't really see many stay-at-home parents, which back then would usually be a mom. This is both unrealistic, but also very different from pretty much every other unemployment survey we've done in a video game. The one caveat here is that the houses themselves generally
They removed
aren't
the kids so we
enterable.
couldn't kill
So
them.
we could infer that maybe each house has at least one person staying at home taking care of the non-existent children or whatever. But we
Children.
didn't see those people, so they don't count for the survey. Additionally, the real-life unemployment rate wasn't really calculated until after the Great Depression, meaning a real-life point of comparison here probably isn't going to be super accurate, but there is a historian named Stanley Stanley
Lebergot.
Lurgan, who estimated that the annual average unemployment rate in 1907 was probably around 1.8% countrywide.
a lot
It
of
was
employed
obviously
people.
a completely different economy at that time, but this is a lot lower than we're seeing in Red Dead 2, even if 4.5% isn't super crazy. Next up, employment industries. In terms of
Let me close
industry,
my door real quick. Putting my blanket back on. I got my blinky on. Movie time with a blinky. That reminds me of something, you know, a lot of drug dealing charges also get tax evasion charges slapped on them because they don't pay sales tax. Yeah, I learned that a lot of businesses in Japan are legal if you pay taxes. And I don't know how true that is, and I don't want to Google it because I don't want to find out the truth. But I do know soap lands are legal, so prostitution is legal as long as you pay tax. I don't know much about drugs. I think drugs are like just hard illegal, right? Drugs are just like hella illegal. You cannot, you just gotta pay your taxes. The government's gonna get you otherwise. As long as you pay taxes, it's all good.
The final graph looks a lot different from the initial one, so let's do a quick comparison. The graph, when we only included the named NPCs, was dominated by hospitality and retail, but after adding in the 100 or so unnamed NPCs, basically every industry
More
pales
jobs
in comparison to the #1 industry in Valentine, which is, drumroll please,
farming. Yeah.
Agriculture. Over 50% of the town works in some sort of agriculture or
When's the soap and walkthrough stream? I don't think I can
makes a
do
lot of
that.
sense given that nearly
I don't
half
think I
of
can
the
do
area
that.
of the town is made up of a huge
I don't think I'm allowed
livestock
to do
auction
that.
house, and lots of properties also have their own small livestock farms. The way we figured this out was twofold. Firstly, lots of NPCs were just actively on the farm working, so that's easy to deduce. But there were also NPCs we found around town,
I'm not a weeb with
especially
a soap
around
land.
lunchtime, who were very clearly dressed for ranch
They
work, but
wash
just
you
weren't
and jerk
actively
you
doing
off.
it. Their clothes were
And-
dirty, their faces were dirty, they had pistols and knee wraps on. There weren't any other good options for what they might be doing. The other big chunk here is entertainment.
Someone breaking
which
the
may
law
look
makes sure to
surprising
charge for
at first,
sales
but I
tax and
decided
file
to
it in
include
taxes,
sex
yeah.
work as entertainment, and there's a good gaggle of gals who all work in the saloon at night doing just that. The only non-sex worker entertainers are the guy who works at the movie theater and this piano player at the bar. All these smaller slices here are made up of basically everything else. Hospitality, public safety, construction, business owners, pretty much everything you'd expect to be represented here is represented here, which of course begs the question, how realistic is this makeup of industries for a frontier town in 1907? Honestly,
hey, you can't
based
sell
on my
drugs. It's
research,
okay. I
it's
pay
actually
income tax on
surprisingly
it.
Close.
Carry on.
It wouldn't be at all unrealistic to have over half the town working in agriculture in 1907.
Fun fact. If you borrow money from a friend, it may be subject to taxes, but if you steal money and give it back in the same year, it's tax-free. Well, I feel like if you borrow money from a friend, it can be considered under a gift. It's under gift law, right? Borrowing money. Fuck, I hate fucking taxes. I hate taxes! I know why they're necessary. I think taxes should only be on, like, income tax and sales tax. Everything else, leave me the fuck alone. Leave me the fuck alone on everything else. Sales tax and income tax. I feel like that's, like, everything. That covers, like, everything. If I borrow $500 from my friend, fuck you. Leave me alone.
And in fact, as of 1910, 35% of the entire US economy was still agriculture. And that includes the huge industrial cities in that average. So over 50% in a more rural area like this would not be surprising at all. The only two things that stand out as
Fed? There's a Fed in my chat!
would be the entertainment number and the construction number. You'd probably expect entertainment to be a bit lower if this was real life, even including sex workers. And construction you would expect to be a little bit higher. But aside from that, this is a really solid set of representative data. Nice job, Rockstar. The last economic indicator here is going to be wealth distribution. And as we can see, the town of Valentine is dominated by working class folks at about 70%, with middle class people making up 20% and the upper class 10%. Tiny little bit over there for the poor people, but it was really just a couple folks who fit that description. To be honest, the main thing that separated the classes in our survey was just how people were dressed and how dirty they were, which is very shallow of me, but I feel like it worked. And if it's correct, then it shows a town that's not really in horrible shape in terms of wealth inequality. Now, in reality, a frontier town would probably be a little bit poorer than this, with more working class people.
I don't know.
Overall.
I feel like Valentine's
it's not
a very
out of the question to have a
Valentine's very a pass through kind of village. A lot of people like would pass through. It's like very much a trading stop. Do you know what I mean? I feel like as a trading stop, it's fine that it's a bit more on the wealthier side.
distribution roughly like this, especially if it was a busy few years for Valentine and they had to, you know, raise wages to draw more workers in or whatever. And then our last survey question overall, how healthy is everyone in Valentine? Well, half of our survey subjects were in fine health according to our scale. About
PC before you can't buy a GPU because it's $10,000.
Are in good health, which is almost exactly the same
RAM.
as when we were just talking about the named NPCs. It's important to note that with this particular question, we are sort of normatively loading the word fine to basically just mean average in this context. context. So it's sort of a foregone conclusion that most people would be fine. And also that fine in the context of 1907
Motherboard
is
on Friday?
probably
Hell
way,
yeah.
way worse than fine in 2025. But if we want to determine whether this is, you know, realistic in terms of how healthy people were back then, there is one way we can very easily do that, and that's going to be by using their teeth, because that's one thing that we have very solid data on from all the way back in cowboy times. So about 30% of the people we surveyed had one or more teeth completely missing, which seems very high. That seems pretty bad, but it's actually probably significantly lower than it would have been in real life in that era. According to a 1919 congressional report called, this is really what it was called, I didn't name it, okay, they were much ruder back then, Defects Found in Drafted Men, 40% of men who were drafted into the military aged 25 or above were missing at least one tooth, and most scholars of the period agree that missing multiple teeth by the age of 40 would have been extremely common. So if anything, this is actually unrealistic because people have too many teeth in Red Dead Redemption 2. Surprisingly, this means that even down to the hyper-specific details that you would dig up in something like a census, Red Dead Redemption 2 is really a pretty amazing representation of a slice of American history. Obviously, it's video gamified in a lot of ways,
next
but
time you
not
go
as
to
much
Red
as
Dead
you might guess
Red
in
Dead 2, the
others. And in
forested
terms
one?
of employment industries,
Strawberry?
proportions of workers in certain fields, and overall wealth distribution, it's probably about as good as you could hope for, and a whole lot better than you would expect from a video game normally. The only two categories in which things got a little unrealistic are when it comes to age and health. And in fact, those are really the only two big things that would need to be corrected in order for this to be like a really very
Strawberry is
accurate
really pretty,
representation
actually.
of a frontier town.
I want him to
census
check
form.
on
Do you have
Strawberry.
to put kids in the town? Towns have kids. People who live places have families. That's just like part of what a lot of people want to do. So they would need to add kids. And then the other really big thing that I think they should fix if they ever do a Red Dead Redemption 3, our teeth. These things were just in so much worse shape than Red Dead Redemption 2
Fuck up
makes
everyone's
it
teeth.
seem
Your
like
teeth
they
are too
were.
nice.
This cannot be overstated. They need to go in there and just really fuck up people's teeth. But if they do that, thumbs up for realism. I'm Annie Austin. Thanks for watching.
Annie Austin, I need you to go do a census of the teeth in Strawberry. I need you, Annie Austin, I need you to go do not Valentine. I need you to do Strawberry. I want to see the wealth in Strawberry. I feel like Strawberry is a wealthier town. I think Strawberry is a wealthier town. I need you, my guy, to go to Strawberry in Red Dead Redemption 2, and because the buildings in Strawberry look really nice, so